Hello, everybody. Bit scary seeing me absolutely gigantic on my screen with my incredibly messy studio. Oh, hi, Anita. Incredibly messy studio behind me. Yeah, I recycle all of my boxes and it's all back there, and I need to sort it all out anyway. So tonight we are going to be talking about drafting film, and I've got all different ones here that I showed you, so I'll kind of be flipping between screen and on here because I want to do some demonstrating as well. Hi Anita, got two Anitas, hurrah. If you've got any questions that you want to ask while I'm chatting, if you can't hear or you can't see or you can't, I don't know, whatever, let me know. I apologise if there's any noises or anything like that shouldn't be happening. Oh, hi Annie. I've got all three children here this weekend and two dogs, and it's all going well so far, but you know, who knows what will happen. Hi Daryl. Yes, so let's make a start. So I've got three different types of film. Okay, I'm not going to call it drafting film, I'm going to call it film. I've got the two types that probably we are aware of. So I've got the Polydraw here, and I've also got the Duralar here. So these are the ones that you'll recognise. You can buy in pad form. And hi Janice, hi Julie. You can buy in pad form, and you can get both of these you can get from Amazon, you can get from your normal art stores, you can get from you can get the Polydraw from the SAA, you can get Duralar and Polydraw from Jackson's. So they're readily available. They come in different sizes. I tend to get the bigger sizes. So the main differences with these two, and I'll come on to the other drafting film a bit later, but the main differences with these two are thickness and the stability of the paper and the smoothness of it. Okay, so first of all we'll look at the Polydraw. It might be easier if I switch over the screen onto my drawing board, so just bear with. Right, here we go. So hopefully you can see that. I've got some, I'll move that. Oops, I'm going to do a bit of demoing as well. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. If you can't, let me know. So let's look at the Polydraw first. So this is the Polydraw. This pad is A3. So the A3 is like I think it's a British size, I'm not sure, but it's 29.7 by 42 centimetres. It is the 050 double matte. Okay, now you can also get this in the 075 double matte, and I was thinking, you know, 075 must be much thicker than the 050. Apparently not. It's absolutely gigantically enormous. So this is an A3 size. The sheets that I've bought are, I think they're about AO. They're astronomically huge. So I've got them kind of sat over on my table over there flat. They take up so much room. So I kind of made a big mistake there. So anyway, the Polydraw comes in a pad of 15 leaves. You can get it in A4, and like I say, you can get it even bigger than this. So it comes in a pad of 15 leaves. Now it comes with these little it's like tissue paper in between them. Now so somebody bought this and they thought that this was the film. They thought this was actually the film. So don't fall into the mistake of thinking that this is what you're going to be drawing on. You might end up doing something really, really nice on it, but this isn't the film. Okay, so each piece of film is covered by one of those sheets, and then the film, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear it out, and then you can actually see and get hold of it. It is really, really thin. I'll just rip it out of the pad. I'll put the pad to one side. Okay, so this is the film. So actually it's quite good sitting it over the top of the Duralar. You can actually see how transparent it is. And you can also see how, well, I don't know whether you can see how thin it is. It's really thin. It's quite floppy. Actually, oh no, it's fine. Yeah, so it's quite floppy. It's just really thin. And there's nothing wrong with it being thin, but you kind of get a little bit scared. You know, because you're thinking, oh gosh, this is really thin. It's going to rip. It's going to buckle. It's going to damage in some way. You know, and it is quite scary drawing on it. But it actually is very stable, very tough. You know, it's quite. You can't really rip it unless you actually go to rip it. You can't really rip it. And in my experience, I haven't really had it, you know, sort of mark or had any sort of creases or anything in it either. You know, so the thing for me is the thinness. I think it's a psychological thing. I just think, oh gosh, it's so thin, it can't be right. But it's a great surface to work on. Now it's matte both sides. So if I just move this over here, you can't, well you can see it's not shiny. Okay, so it doesn't shine. And it's got both sides are exactly the same. And it's got like, well, it feels super smooth. But when you put the pencil on it, the pencil grabs the surface really easily. And it's just a really fantastic surface to draw on. You can use all sorts of different techniques. You can use your slice tool, you can use your Tombow eraser, you can use all sorts of different the different makes of pencil. It's just a really great surface. Okay, so that is the Polydraw. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, and we'll have a look at putting some pencil on that. Oops. Then we've got the Duralar. So this is the Duralar. This comes in a different format. This is a bigger one. It's 14 by 17 inches. And you get 25 sheets, and it's cheaper. Now this isn't drafting film. And I know I have probably confused people, but the Duralar is not drafting film. It's polyester film, but it's not drafting film. It works in exactly the same way as the drafting film, but they class it almost as almost like a student grade, I'd say. It comes in the pad, and it doesn't have any of those leaves in between, so it just comes in a whole pad of the paper. If I just pull a sheet out. So when you've been playing with the Polydraw, when you pull a sheet of the Duralar out, it feels like you've pulled about 10 sheets off at the same time, because it is much thicker. Just bring the Polydraw over here so that you can have a little bit. I don't know whether you will be able to see the difference. That's the Duralar, and this is so you can see if I move it around, and this is the Polydraw. If I move that around, it's much thinner. So I'd say that the Duralar is more like a just slightly thinner than, say, a sheet of you know, your hot press watercolour paper, something like that is slightly thinner, whereas your Polydraw is like drawing on tissue paper. Okay, so the Duralar again is matte. It's polyester. It's matte both sides, and that's what you need to be looking for, is the matte both sides. This, when you feel it compared to the Polydraw, it's much smoother. And yet it still takes pencil really well, but it is much smoother. You can still use both sides like you can with the Polydraw. I like it that it's thicker. So that's one of the things that I really like about the Duralar, is that it's thick. It feels sturdy. And the other thing that I have kind of experimented with and found out, and I mean, it depends on what you want to be doing, but the Duralar is much better with any heat than the Polydraw and the sheets of drafting film. So the Duralar is actually really heat resistant. So if you, like I used the hairdryer on the squirrel that I did, I've been doing some experimenting. I want to buy an Icarus board, but I can't warrant paying all of the money for it. So I've bought sounds ridiculous, I've bought a hot plate warmer, which has got like a stainless steel top, and it gets really hot. It gets really, really hot, and it stays really hot for a long time. But the Duralar works better with heat, and it resists heat. The drafting film, when you put that on over the heat, it goes flat, but it warps. So you can actually see it warping when it's getting too hot. Whereas the Duralar is really, really heat resistant. So that's another really good thing for the Duralar. You know, if you're wanting to use an Icarus board or a hairdryer or something like that, you know, to help you with your blending, that's another really good thing. The other really good thing is that it is smoother than the Polydraw and the graphics sheets. So you can get, I think you can blend slightly better on the Duralar. But that's kind of down to techniques and all that type of thing. But the main thing for me is the weight of it. It feels much more stable. It's much nicer to handle when you're moving it backwards and forwards. You're not thinking, oh God, you know. And for me, it doesn't crease. It really doesn't crease, and I've manhandled mine quite a lot, and I've taken them to workshops and stuff like that, and it doesn't crease. So I really do like the Duralar. I think it's a really good film to use. There are some cons with it, which we'll come to when I start to do like a little bit of demonstrating. And hello from Texas, hello from Yorkshire. You know, so I can show you some of the things that aren't so great on it. But it's more cost effective, so it's cheaper and you get more of it. So you know, if you've got some Duralar, that's brilliant, because I think it's a really, really good film. Okay. So the next one we're going to be looking at, is the drafting film, the actual drafting film. This sheet here is cut from a massive sheet, which is about 30 inches by something else. This is the graphics drafting film. So this is proper drafting film. It's matte, again, double-sided, and like the Duralar, it's thick. Okay. So my preference now is to use this over the Polydraw, and that's purely because down to the thickness. It just feels much nicer to handle. You know, the Polydraw is just a little bit too flimsy for me. Not that it's only a psychological thing for me. You know, it hasn't damaged or you know, it hasn't creased or anything like that. But I prefer to use the drafting film now. So the majority of my work on film is now done on the drafting film. Now it's not as heat resistant as Duralar, which is what I've just said, but what is amazing is that if you know drafting film and you've had some drafting film and you've felt it, you'll feel it and you'll go, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to do anything on that. I'm not going to be able to layer. I'm not going to be able to do anything. What a pile of rubbish. And if you are somebody who has been using Pastelmat, you'll be thinking, you know, how on earth can I go from Pastelmat to drafting film when I'm used to being able to put, you know, 3 million layers down? You know, how am I going to be able to transfer my skills I've learned on Pastelmat and put them onto drafting film? Well, honestly, this film it's incredible. You can put, I mean, if you're light-handed, you can put 20 layers on it if you want, and let's face it, who wants to put more than 20 layers on Pastelmat? I really don't. But you could put 20 layers on this. Plus, oh, hi Angie, and hi Anne, hello everybody. You can put loads and loads of layers on this film. I could honestly, I can't tell you how amazing it is as an artist to find a surface that you can not get frustrated with because of all of the tooth, but manage to get vibrancy and detail, and still layer your colours so that you get all of those gorgeous colours coming through. Honestly, it is the most fantastic thing. It is Anita, isn't it? It really is much more robust than the Polydraw, and it's the same stuff, but it's just thicker. I don't understand the weight thing with them, the microns or whatever. I don't know what that means, but it's much nicer to be working on the thickness. So I'm just going to pull across the piece that I'm drawing at the moment. So completely unprepared. So I just want to bring this in just to show you a few things. I wasn't going to show you, and then I thought, no, actually, it'd be quite good to show you because it shows you the vibrancy. Now, the first thing to show you is this sheet with all of these little pock marks on. So this is just a sheet of computer paper that I lay over the top of my drawings whenever I leave it. All of these little pock marks are from the end of the Tombow. So when you rub off the pencil from the, when you rub it onto the film, all of the pencil dust ends up on the top of the Tombow. So I have this next to me, and I just take off all of the, I just rub it off onto the paper, and it kind of, it means that I end up with a cleaner rubber most of the time. Anyway, so I just want to show you this horse that I'm doing at the moment. So you can see here that we've got some really lovely vibrant colours in here. We've got depth. I'm still kind of working on bits of it, but I've got as much depth on this as I have on Pastelmat. I've got, then this hasn't, and I have to say as well, this hasn't taken me a shorter time. This has taken me around about the same amount of time as it would if I was drawing on Pastelmat. I've got layers going down, so I'm putting a layer of colour down, then another layer of colour down, then I'm putting some detail in, then I'm using my Tombow all of the time to kind of help bring stuff out. The noseband area here took me all afternoon to do. So it's, when people say that the film is a speedier surface to work on, it can be, but it just depends on your style, on how you work. I like to work with detail. I like to put as much detail in as I can. I like to make my things seem real. So it takes an awful lot longer to create something, than somebody who doesn't have that same sort of style. So, but what's fantastic about the film is I don't have to battle with the tooth. I don't have to battle with it looking really grainy and kind of working through it and all of that type of stuff. Now that's really fantastic, because that can be quite soul destroying really when you're having to battle with a tooth all of the time. Now, one of the things that is really tricky with film, I'll just zoom in a little bit. I'll have to focus it a bit better. Okay, so the thing that is really tricky on film is, and it seems bizarre because it's a really smooth surface, so you'd think, oh, smooth surface, I'm going to get a really lovely smooth finish. To get something smooth is really hard, and that's why I really like the film for textured animals. So for the leopard, for the poodle fur, that type of thing. Oh, hi Doris. I love it for texture because you can use the Tombow, you can use your slice, you can get some amazing textures in there. But when it comes to something super smooth, it's really challenging, you know, because what happens, so what we've got here is we've got sort of like a transition from sort of browns and blues through into this sort of, this is a big highlight on the noseband. It looks silver actually. To get this to be really, really smooth, it's taken forever. Now, if I was doing this on Pastelmat, it would be a downside easier, because I could just, with Pastelmat, you just put your pigment on and then you can move it around. You can move it around with your other pencils and it works amazingly. So that's one of the downsides of the film, is actually this being able to get realistic, smooth things. I personally find that quite tough. I mean, I've done it, you know, and it looks, and I'm happy with it, but it's not easy. You know, so it's not as, yeah, I don't think it's quite as easy to get smooth things on the film as with the Pastelmat, but you can definitely get the vibrancy, you can get all of those gorgeous colours, and all of the pencils work brilliantly on it. So I'm just going to move this back and then we can just have a quick play. I'm just going to take this and put it away just in case, because I hate to damage it at this point. Right, so I'm going to have a bit of a play. I'm going to move this up again. So I've got the Duralar there. I've got the Polydraw there, which is really like a piece of tissue paper, and I've got the graphics at the back. Surprises me that the draft film isn't easy to get smooth. I know it's bizarre, isn't it? Because I honestly, in fact, let me just put something on the table so that I can focus in. There we go. Yeah, you would have thought that it would be much easier to get something smooth, but it's really hard. It is really hard. So what I'm going to do is, let's just have a bit of a. I'm not going to draw anything amazing. I'll save that till later. The other thing to remember is, especially when you're using Polydraw, Polydraw, because it's so thin, and actually that you can work to your advantage as well, but because it's so thin, whatever surface you've got underneath, it's going to pick up the texture of the surface that's underneath. So I've actually got a board here, just a board that came with some paper, I think, but it's got a bit of a surface to it. It's shiny, but it's still got some lumps and bumps on it. So when I put pencil onto the Polydraw, it's going to pick up all of that texture. Now you can really work that to your advantage by, you know, if you want something with texture, so if you're drawing sort of like a tree or something like that, you know, you could put something underneath the Polydraw and sort of, you know, rub your pencil over the top of it, and it almost like a, you know, when you used to do coin rubbings and stuff like that at school, you know, you can get some of the texture coming through. So that can be really useful. It's not as easy with the thicker films. They don't seem to pick up the texture as much, but I think because the Polydraw is so thin, it does. Okay, so pencils that you would use on the drafting film, on the Polydraw, the drafting film, the Duralar, you can use any of the pencils. Hi Sarah. Prismacolors work like a dream on drafting film. They work like an absolute dream. Let me get some Prismas. So if we get some pretty colours that you can see, because the Prismas are waxy. If I just bring some in here, so what's this called? This is carmine red. Because they're so waxy, you can get you can see, I don't know whether you can see, I might need to, let's go in a little bit and then you can actually see what's going on. Hang on. There. Is that focused? Yeah. Yeah, that's focused. So this is Prisma. And this is the Polydraw that I'm working on at the moment. So when I'm putting the Prisma down, It's really, really creamy. I don't have to put much pressure down, you know, and you get some really nice vibrant colours on there. You can see on the Polydraw that it is picking up the texture of what's underneath. You know, which I say, if it's an issue if you want it to be super smooth. Now, if you want it to be super smooth, you're better to put another piece of film underneath it and use either a sheet of glass or a really, really smooth paper underneath. So something like a Moulin de Roy hot press, sort of the ultra smooth one. I've used that and that works really, really well. But you can see the colours, they kind of, well, you can layer really quite nicely. You can get some really good thick layers on there. I'm actually pressing quite hard here at the moment, and this is the Prisma that I'm using. If I was going to use really light pressure, you still get a really lovely vibrant colour. I'm just touching the paper on this one, and we're still getting oh, it matches my nails, look. We're still getting you know, quite a lot of vibrancy there, but you can see that it's not particularly smooth. You know, you get these lines in it. That's kind of the, oh, hi Lynn, good thing not live, sound my end. I just dropped my cup of soup. Oh no, well, I hope you're all right. What sort of soup was it? Has it gone everywhere, like tomato soup everywhere? Yeah, so you can see there that, you know, yes, we've got some of the texture coming from the paper underneath, but you can still see how you're getting lines in there, and that's what I mean about it. You know, it's quite hard to get something really smooth, and it's just about basically being really, really careful. So those are the Prismas. Prismas work really nicely. What works in, oh my goodness, incredibly well are the Derwent drawings. So I'm just going to get some of them now. I don't, if anybody hasn't got the Derwent drawings, I highly, highly recommend them. Just pull out the, oh, have I got them down here? So these are the Derwent drawings. They are, how many are there? The 24 pencils, and they're all highly light fast, and they are the most amazing colours. They're all really lovely natural colours. I'm trying to find, oh, there it is. Yeah, so they're all natural colours, and they're just fantastic. So if we go here, so we've got the drawings here, and this is on the Polycolour, and just the Polydraw. So the drawings work amazingly. So this is Venetian Red. They're better than the Prismas. You can see again on the Polydraw is picking up the texture. But you can layer. This is the Mars Orange. You can layer them. You can get some really nice colours. They've got the most gorgeous. This is the Mars Violet, which I use all of the time with orange animals. They're just really superb colours for, you know, animals and stuff like that. But you can see with the Polydraw it's picking up all of that down there. Now then, my gosh. Okay. Oh, sweet potato. Okay. Oh, that's all right. So many sets of pencils. Just bought the drawings and I so love them. The light sienna is just wonderful. They're honestly, they're just amazing. I just love them. I love them. There's the warm grey here. They're just the most fantastic colours. They really are, and they work beautifully on the Polydraw. Now, what works really, really well on the Polydraw is the slice tool. And so I can go in here, I can do this. So we did this for the Fjord Pony. I can I can do that on the Prisma as well. You know, I'm using some hard pressure here. I mean, you can see the Polydraw sort of moving around a bit, but you know. So this is just a makeup brush that I use, but you can see there, you know, how it's taken all of that out. And if you rub your finger over the top of it, you can't feel the other drawing pencils. They're wax Doris, I think. It doesn't say. Highly light, fast, have the unique creamy texture. Blah 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 blah. No, I think they're wax. And then what you can do is, with all of this, you know, when you take out the texture, that you can then go back in again, and you can sort of darken bits up, and it misses out. It's like embossing. It misses out, you know, some of those areas there. That's amazing, absolutely amazing. So again, you can use your slice. You can also use the Tombow. My Tombow's not particularly clean. But you can use the Tombow to help you help create, you know, texture, stuff like that, or of course just to rub everything out, you know, to create sort of like even bigger hairlines, that type of stuff. And it just works brilliantly, works really, really well. You can use pan pastels on the film. You've got to really, really scrub them in. You've got to really, really get them in. The just plain drafting film is Graphics. The one that I use is Graphics, Annie. And what's confusing is that Graphics make all three of these. So Graphics make Polydraw, Graphics make Duralar, and Graphics make just the drafting film sheets. So that's a little bit, you know, confusing really. But yeah, so you can use pan pastels, but you've got to really, really scrub them in. I think you can use inks on it. The only thing with anything that's wet, so any media that's wet, is it takes forever to dry. I tried and failed miserably to fix the pan pastels, so to use a fixative, it just didn't work, and everything just smudged off. But one of the things that does work on all of them, so I'm going to move to the Duralar now so that I can just show you how what the difference is with the Duralar to the Polydraw. So this is the Duralar. It's the thicker one, and all of the pencils, again, they all work beautifully on it. So if I just use, I've got this is a light cobalt blue luminance. I find that the luminance, they almost sit on the top of the paper. So if I'm drawing whiskers, so say I was drawing the whiskers of the leopard and I drew them with the, I think I did them with the buff titanium, they almost sit on the top of the paper. And it's just, it works so nicely. It looks really, really good. You know, it's almost like you've got a shadow there. It's almost like it's 3D, so I really like that, and it works better on the Duralar than it does on the Polydraw. So we've got luminance there. If I bring in probably some of the, I've got some polychromos here, so I'm just going to use really, really light pressure on the polychromos. This is just the terracotta. So you can, it's picking up a little bit of that texture, so you do have to be quite careful. But you can get a relatively smooth lay down. You know, it's easier to get the smoothness on the Duralar than it is on the drafting film. And I think it's just because of the coating that's on the polyester. I think it's just a different coating. So if I use a darker sort of walnut brown here. With the Duralar, you can still layer. So I can still put, you know, put the brown over the top of the orange. I can't really go any lighter, so if I wanted to go lighter on that orange now, I'd have to get my slice tool out, or I'd have to get the eraser out or something like that. But you can see you can layer really nicely. It works really, really well. Oh, hi Nicola. Oh, don't worry, I'll be saving the link so you can watch the whole lot all over again. So you can see it twice. Yeah, so it layers very nicely, you know, And you can use the difference, so that's polychromos, and then I've got the drawing over the top, so you can use the drawing over the top. They all work, you know, really well together. The only pencil I've found it works, but I don't choose to use them, are the Lightfast, but they still work. But I prefer to use the Pablos, polychromos, drawing, and the luminance, and then if I need to I'll use the Prisma as well, but I don't tend to use the Prismas. So that's that, and that again, if I take out, so this works really well with the Tombow. You kind of get used to it, but you've just got to be careful when you're taking colour out. The colour ends up on the end of the Tombow, so then it ends up outside of where you're trying to erase. So, you know, and it's just a case of just going in and erasing it, and that's fine. And the Duralar works really, really nicely actually with the erasing. Now, when it comes to using the slice, you know how heavy we were using the slice on the Polydraw? If I use the slice on here, it actually damages the film, and you can hear it there. So I'm using this exactly the same pressure as I used on the Polydraw, and it's fine, because, you know, that's okay. That's what I want. You can feel it a little bit, but sometimes, in fact, you know, if you're going to be using your slice tool like that, it will, I guarantee, snag, and you will end up with a bit of quite damaged. Well, if I wanted to take that out there, you end up with a piece of damaged film. And it's not nice. And then when you try to draw over the top of it, you can see there, it just goes a little bit weird. And this is what I found with the Duralar, is it just it takes the slice, but you've got to be really, really careful. You're better using the slice with this. What have we got here? What thickness of each type of film do you use? Right, so the thickness of the Duralar is the, what is it? It's 0.005. The thickness of the drafting film is 0.005. And the thickness of the Polydraw, they call it 505. And the Polydraw is much, much thinner. So I just don't understand where they get the thickness from. I don't understand how it works. Yeah, so... oh, that's all right, Angie. Yeah, so I would say if you're going to use the Duralar, if you're going to use your slice tool, and you want to use your slice tool, don't use it with the gusto that we have been doing for, like, say, like the Field Pony. You would use it really, really gently and quite specifically. So you'd be really, really careful using, and then it will work okay. But it just doesn't work the same as it does on the drafting film and the Polydraw. It just doesn't. But it's quite nice to, you know, you can blend quite nicely. It's just a very nice surface to work on. Plus, it works really, really well with heat. So if you wanted to use sort of like a heat or something like that, the Duralar works really well with that. So I did my squirrels with a hairdryer, and it just doesn't damage at all. You know, it's a really, really sturdy surface to work on. So then if we come to the sheet of drafting film, which is here. And this is the same width, the same thickness as the Duralar, but it is, you can feel it's really smooth, but not nearly as smooth as the Duralar. And this is the one that I've started to use on a regular basis, and it just works beautifully. You know, we can get some really lovely layering going down. So this is one of the drawings that I'm using here, the drawing pencils. You know, really, really, really light pressure. I might want to use like the Venetian red on there as well. Oh, the other thing as well is I find that having blunt pencils is a real advantage with using drafting film, unless you're drawing like tiny details. But things like you know, sort of larger surfaces of hair or fur or whatever, using a blunt, and you can see how blunt that is, using a blunt pencil, you basically have more area that goes down onto the paper, and you're less likely to get these sort of like lines. You do get the lines. I'm using a bit heavier pressure there just to kind of show you. This is kind of what you end up getting. You get this sort of liney feel. And you don't get that with pastel matte. So that's one of the downsides, you know, and you've got to just really work at it. I mean, I've done that on purpose so that you can see. She says she's done it on purpose. I have definitely done that on purpose. What makes, did you say that is? Oh, so this one that I'm working on now is the graphics drafting film. This comes from a big sheet. The other one was the Duralar polyester film, and the other one is the Polydraw. So what I'll do is I'll kind of drop like a bit of a, I'll do like a little bit of a Q&A with pictures and stuff as a PDF for you as well. Is drafting film your favourite? Yeah, it is. It is. It is, Candice, because it's thicker. So it's like the Polydraw, but it's thicker like the Duralar, and you have this amazing ability to be able to layer on it. You know, you can really get a lot of layers on here, if you want to. You maybe have to plan a little bit better, but I can keep going. You know, and if I want to, I can use my Studios as well. So the Studio pencils work really nicely on it too, and they'll work over other pencils. Whereas on the Duralar, they don't work quite as well. But on the graphics drafting film sheets, they work really nicely. I can use my you can see you get the pencil dust off, but you don't get all of those little bits of film that come off like we did with the Duralar. So that works really well, and the Tombow works really well. So you know, the drafting film for me is a winner. It really is, and it's much easier to frame than the Polydraw as well because it's sturdier. Now I was saying about the pastels, and I love pastels. I think pastels look amazing, and I have a huge admiration for people who use pastels. So I think they just look fantastic. Sadly, they make me cough, and I end up losing my voice when I use them, which is really sad. So I have bought these NeoPastels, which are, because basically I want to find a way of being able to do a background which is smooth, but is going to be relatively quickly, and I don't want to be doing a background really using pencils because it's just going to take forever. Best pencils to work on drafting film: Polychromos, Derwent. Yeah, Polychromos, Derwent, Luminance. The Pablos work really nicely. Let's find a Pablo. Pablos work really well. Pablos work really well. So you'd kind of use them as per how you would normally use them, either for colours or for just your choice. The only ones I don't really use are the Lightfast, and I don't know whether that's because they're just maybe a little bit sticky. I don't know. I mean, that's a Lightfast there, and that still looks, you know, really nice. I think it's difficult then to layer over the top with other. Oh, there, that works okay. So I think it's entirely up to you what you want to use. I don't think there's a best pencil to work on drafting film, to be honest. I think, you know, whatever you want to use, you can use. I have to say, when I was doing the squirrel and I was doing the background, I didn't have any of the drawings, so I was using the Prismacolors and the Luminance. And then I bought the drawings and I was like, oh my God, I wish I'd had these right from the start because they were just perfect. I mean, they are really superb pencils, and they're not that expensive because there are only 24 of them. So anyway, so I've got these Neopastels, which I've been doing a bit of experimenting with as well. And I've been experimenting with them with heat because I was thinking, oh, well, I'll melt them and we'll see what happens. So I've got a bit of a test sheet here, which it's not brilliant, but this was the one that I did with the heat, and it is, you can see it comes off on my finger. So there's a lot of wax on here, a lot of oil on here. And I was thinking, oh gosh, right, okay, yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work, because you don't want something that's unstable. You don't want it to be coming off and what have you. But then I had to play with them without the heat. And they are amazing. So this is what's this? This is Scarlet. And I've just bought this little, I think there's 24 in here. Of these, and they're just oil pastels, and I guess you could use any oil pastels, I suppose. So if I just start to, and I'm not using a lot of pressure here, they're just, it's just going onto the paper. Now I've been using this to play with, so it has got some other colours on it, but this I'm just going to use a big fat paper stump, and I'm just going to move the colour around. And because they're creamy and oily, and they go on sort of not wet, but they go on oily rather than dry like the pencils do, you can move them about, and you can create these really smooth areas of colour. And then when I put my hand over the top, they're completely stable. I don't get any of the colour onto my fingers. Whereas when I was doing it with the heat, it just comes off all over the place. And then you can blend. So if I just bring in a little bit of that in there. So what I'm thinking of is the cat portrait that I want to be drawing, and then I can just blend some of that in there. Obviously I'd be a little bit more careful with my colours, and I'd plan it a little bit better. But I'm thinking you could actually get a really, really nice background and everything. Again, it's pretty stable. You're not gonna get any colour off that at all. And the other brilliant thing is that you can use it's a bit grubby because it ends up on the end of it, but you can use the Tombow. You wouldn't want to be putting loads of texture using the Tombow in here, but what I'm thinking is, if I'm doing the cat, thought oil pastels never dry. Well, they're completely stable. They just go on and they stay. But to be honest, the pencils are really stable as well. Now, if you put your pencil onto pastel mat and then rubbed your hand over the top of it, you'd take half of it off. So I don't know whether it's something to do with the film. I'm not sure. But then of course you can also use the slice. I was doing this the other day after having had that dreadful play with the with the pastels on it, and like going, oh my god, I just made the most disgusting muddy. It was just ridiculous. I think it is hard to blend a smooth background with those oil pastels. No, I think it's going to be really easy. I think it's going to be really easy. I've done this. With the paper stump, you're gonna have to put your colour down, but and it's not going to be like a 2-minute job. But for me, this is a much easier way of getting a smooth background than using, say, if I was going to use, say, Prismas on here, and I wanted to create a smooth background. I'd have to be really, really careful, about how I was going to put my pencil down. I guess it could work, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. But then when you come to Just need to be careful here because I've got a little stump here that might be a better one. It's a bit cleaner. They don't. Can you see how they don't move around? So I'm blending it with that, but it's not really. Whereas this one, I can actually move it about. You know, and then I just add more. So my thinking is that actually I'd be able to make quite a nice background using these oil pastels. And if I wanted to, I could heat them up a little bit to make them even better. Your experiments are so valuable. Well, I mean, to be honest, other people get on really well with pastels, and I've done some pieces in pastel, and like I say, I don't dislike pastels at all. I do like them, you know, but they're not for me. I'll let other people use them. But these oil pastels, for me, I'll be able to get some vibrant background and not have all of the. I mean, if you saw my video, you'd have seen I was covered in the stuff. Absolutely covered in it. So I think that these oil pastels might actually be a really good alternative. You know, so right, framing. And kind of looking after your piece once you've actually done it on the drafting film. Maybe they get stable once they're blended. Yes, I think so. I mean, honestly, I'm even if I press really hard, it's not really coming off. Coming off a little bit. You can see how shiny my finger is. You know, I'm pressing quite hard, so you know, I think they'd be all right. Yeah, so framing a piece that you've done on drafting film. And it can be quite tricky, and I know that there are a few different thoughts, and I think there are some different videos out there as well. I know Karen Hull is a very, very good source for anybody wanting to use drafting film. And let me just write it on here. I think, in fact, let me just find her website and then I'll write it on here, and then you can Karen Hull. Right. So you want to be looking at Karen Hull. art.com. I don't know whether you can see that. My dreadful writing. That's what you want to be looking at. Is KarenHullArt.com. She has the most amazing information about drafting film. Oh yes, you saw my hands, Janice. You'll have known then how filthy I got. It was everywhere. It's still everywhere. I can't get rid of it. So anybody that says pan pastels aren't dusty, they're lying. Anyway, so have a look on KarenHullArt.com for drafting film information as well, because she has so much information on it. It's incredible, and I think she's got some videos and stuff out there as well. I mean, she really is the queen of everything coloured pencil. And I think I don't know who else has got a video out showing how to frame it. Basically, what I do and what I've worked on with my framer is, and we were using the Polydraw actually, and the Polydraw, with it being so flimsy, it can ripple quite easily. You know, so you can, if you strap it down, top, sides and bottom, you will get like a bit of a rip. You can get like a bit of a ripple like this, that effect. And actually, I've had pieces where they've sort of slipped before as well. So what you're best doing, and what we found the best thing to do, is just to take a single piece of tape, and tape it from the top, and let it hang behind your backing board. And that way it's literally just hanging, and then it won't ripple. Now the other thing, what you've got to be quite careful that you're not sandwiching the glass right up to it, because that can make it ripple as well. With the thicker Duralar and the drafting film, it's almost like just like normal paper. So again, you can just hang it from the top, just with a piece at the top. You can get these little they're like photography corners, aren't they? You know, the little sort of triangular corners. You can put those in and just kind of stick it in. What my framer does is they put a piece of backing board behind it, and then they put another piece of backing board behind that as well, just to make sure that it's really, really stable. And what I would say is, the other brilliant thing about the drafting film is you can put different colours behind it, you know, so it can make a massive difference to your drawing as to what colour you put behind it. So we've got white behind there, but if I put sort of like a piece of brown behind it, you know, you get a completely different feel. You can put a background behind it to make it a little bit muted. I've seen people who have done their main image on the front, and then they've maybe put something on the back, so it's almost like a 3D, or they've put sort of like another drawing or whatever behind it. I think the Polydraw is more transparent than the drafting film, although I'm not sure actually. They both look about the same. I think they both look about the same, really. That's the Polydraw and that's the drafting film, and they've crossed over there, so you can see what they look like if you've got film behind it. But you can put all sorts of things. You can put backgrounds in behind them. You can put other things behind them so that it looks more 3D. It's such a versatile surface to work on, and you know, you can get all sorts of different sort of styles on it. So you can be quite painterly. You can be really, really precise. You can be really detailed. You know, you can get all sorts of things. You can get the realism. You can get, you know, sort of more abstracty. It's entirely what you know, whatever you want to do, you can do. Are the new colour water soluble? All right, no. So I've got the Neo pastels. The Neo colour are water soluble. Which is great, and they're more of a crayon, and they're supposed to be really lovely. I don't know what I think anytime you put any liquid onto film, it's always going to be a little bit unstable. It's always going to be a bit unpredictable, but there's no reason why you couldn't. There's an artist who lives near me who works on drafting film with graphite, and he uses acetone, you know, nail varnish remover, and makes the most amazing pieces. The backgrounds are all done with acetone. It looks fantastic. So there's all sorts of things you can use on it. And you found the 0.4 drafting film. So I use the 0.5, and I can only assume that the 0.4 is either thinner or less transparent. I'm not sure which. So yeah. I don't really know what the microns is, but I have a suspicion that it might be to do with transparency, but I'm not entirely certain. So yeah, but I don't know whether anybody's got any more questions. I don't know whether that's been, well, hopefully it's been useful. I'll just go through these again. So we've got the, oops, I'll just put this up here. I've got this now to, I'll refocus. So this again is graphics. So this is made by Graphics, and this is the Duralar. And what you're after is, it says here, 0.005 two-sided matte film. Okay. Now this isn't drafting film. It's polyester, and it's more like a student grade film, but it's lovely. You get 25 sheets. It is quite expensive, but it's not as expensive as the actual drafting film. So that's the Duralar, and then we have the Polydraw. The Polydraw, again, it is actually made by Graphics. It's 050, and again it's double matte. And you get 15 leaves in here, but it's very thin. It's like tissue. It is tissue paper thin. But if you have some of this, you know, it's still brilliant. It's still really, really good. And then the last one that I've been using is this is the drafting film that comes in a big sheet. They either send it to you flat, or they roll it up. The only issue is if they roll it up and then it gets squashed, you can see there, it will crease. Now, I haven't had the Polydraw, that probably will, yeah, so the Polydraw will crease too. And then this is the Dural. And the Dural, yeah, so they're all, if you squash them, I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. But there's a bit of a crease in there. You know, so you can damage them, and if you're using the really big sheets of drafting film, you've got to be really, really careful, because half the time you can't see the little dints in normal light, and then when you switch your big lights on, or you sort of change the light and you like, oh, hang on a second, I've got a load of dints in there. So you've got to be really quite careful. So, you know, as with all paper, you just have to be careful with it. So my recommendation would be the drafting film, the sheets of the drafting film. I think you can get probably a lot for your money from a large sheet, because you can cut it down to the sizes you want. It's a good thickness, so it feels sturdy. You can get a tremendous amount of layers onto it. You've got the most gorgeous, vibrant colour. You can use mixed media on it, so you can use you know, you can use the pigment markers. You can use all sorts of different things. You can use pan pastel if you want. You'll have to sort of scrub it all the way in though, you know, to try and make it as, you know, as stable as possible and not all coming off. And the other really good thing is you can actually see through it. So if you print off, well, you can attach it to your computer screen, and you can trace around an outline on your computer screen. You could print out your outline, shove it underneath, and you can, you know, trace around that. Well, you don't have to trace either. You can do your line drawing on it. It erases, so you can erase it right back. And it will take, you know, all of the pencils that you've got, including your Prismas, because a lot of people have Prismas and then they get put off using them because, you know, people are saying, oh, they're really rubbish quality and they're not light fast and blah, 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 blah. But actually, they're a really good pencil, and some of the top artists use them. So if you've got Prismas, you know, don't be scared about using them. And they work fantastically on the film. The only thing to remember about using the film is, well, you can use whatever pressure you like, but if you want to put lots of layers on, you need to use really, really feather light pressure. And if you want to do really smooth areas of colour, then it's about slow, light pressure, building it up really, really gradually. You know, so yeah, well, I hope that's been useful. I'll try and put like a little PDF together with some information and some pictures and all that type of stuff, which hopefully will help. I'm not going away from pastel matte. Have you ever used translucent vellum paper? I haven't, Doris, no, but I've heard about it, and it is supposed to be really nice to draw on. So that's maybe the next thing, the next big thing. You know, but I haven't moved away from pastel matte. I do really like pastel matte. What I love about the drafting film is I've never got on with smooth paper ever. I've never really been happy with the stuff I've done on smooth paper, and I've always felt a little bit like I was battling with it. You know, and I see all of these amazing artists doing stuff on the Bristol vellum and the hot press papers and whatever, and I'm like, oh, how do they do that? How do they get that? I just can't get that. But I can get that on the pastel mat. And I really like the pastel mat. I do have my demons with it, and I do, the quality of it, the consistency of the quality of it is frustrating. And obviously, you know, sort of getting through, if you've got a grainy piece or something like that, it can be really frustrating. But what I've found in the drafting film is all of the techniques I've used on a pastel mat, I can use on the drafting film. You know, I can use the lovely light pressure. I can get the amount of layers I want to put in. I'm not going to use 3 million, but you know, but I can put the amount of layers I want to put in. I can use my subtraction techniques, so I can draw with white. I can put all my pigment down, and I can create all of my texture and everything using the slice or whatever. I don't use the tape on the film. So everything that I can do on drafting film, on pastel mat, I can do on the drafting film. Obviously, I don't have the luxury of the colours and all that type of thing. So it's been a really, really nice surface for me to work on. You know, so that I can, having a smooth paper, you know, because a lot of people want to use a smooth paper because they don't want to battle with the tooth, and yet I can't use a smooth paper. Well, I can use a smooth paper, but it just doesn't turn out how I want it to. But on the film, it does. So, you know, it's, I just think it's a really lovely surface to work on. So what I'll do is, I'm not going to end the stream right now, because I know that if I end the stream right now, it will just cut off right now, and you don't hear all of the stuff that I've already said. So I'll just type in here a little bit and say thank you, everybody. And if anybody wants any questions, or you know, wants to ask any questions or anything like that, then you're very welcome to. So I'll say goodbye, and I'll do a little bit of this, and then I'll end it, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thank you ever so much for joining me.